Yesterday, after a 2-day manhunt, three Islamic jihadists who murdered on Wednesday 10 journalists and cartoonists of the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, shouting Allahu Akbar, God is great, were finally cornered and gunned down in a coordinated raid by French commando units. They brought to an end the most deadly terrorist attack in France for a generation, described by Patrick Klugman, the deputy mayor of Paris, as our kind of 9/11. The Al-Qaeda's branch in Yemen said it had directed the Wednesday massacre at the French satirical newspaper as revenge for the honor of Islam's prophet Muhammad. The weekly paper has published cartoons many times lampooning Muhammad, like the one that you are viewing, and recently mocked Sharia law with this headline, Sharia Hebdo. No topic or person, religion or culture for this satirical paper has ever been too sacred or off limits. The concern that followed from American journalists was whether similar attacks by Islamists were forthcoming to the USA. Our president and other political leaders' narrative has been there's nothing more than attack on free speech. That's what this is all about. And we readily go along with this storyline because our ignorance of Islam and its founder, Muhammad, prevents us from accurately discerning what really was at the root of this attack. I thought spending a little time getting to know this so-called prophet, Muhammad, and the religious system he started called Islam, my hope is we will have much more clarity as to what has taken place this week in France and what we can expect in the days to come from his followers. Now this morning, most of you awoke to an alarm clock, and perhaps you like to use your cell phones to wake up. But for millions around the world, they wake up to a very different kind of music. Their wake up is to the morning prayer calls from their local mosque. And these people make up the world's 1.2 billion Muslims. There are lives that are dominated by the imam, dominated by their mosque, and the rules of Islam. The Muslim people, brothers and sisters, have a vastly different view of this world than Christians or Americans, for that matter. A vastly different view. And to understand this, and to understand this threat to our society, you've got to understand Islam. We've got to take ourselves out of Western thinking, Judeo-Christian thinking, to understand their context, their frame of reference, their point of view. So what is Islam? Do you really know? Maybe you just know you're against it as believers, but you've got to know what you're dealing with. Islam literally means submission. Submission. A Muslim is one who submits. Islam is the second fastest growing religion and the second largest religion behind Christianity in this world. In fact, 25% of the world population are Muslims. Over 50 countries have a Muslim majority. So then you might be thinking to yourself, are all Muslims Arab? Well, actually, only 30% of Muslims are Arab speaking. The top 4 nations with Muslim population are not Arab. Indonesia, where a lot of your furniture is being made now, is 88% 88% Muslim. Where Indonesia has 238 million people, 88% are Muslim. Where Pakistan has 150 million, 97% of Pakistan is Muslim. How about India? 1 billion people? 12% of them are Muslim, but out of a billion, that's a pretty hefty share of Muslims. In Bangladesh, 141 million in that country, 83% of that country is Muslim. So then, we've worked through that not all Muslims are Arab, but are all Arabs Muslim? Not entirely, but practically. 95% of Arabs worldwide are Muslims. However, Americans, 2 million Arabs, which is interesting, 2 million Arabs in America. Did you hear that? Only 23% claim to be Muslim. Claim. Islam's founder, creator, is Muhammad. They call him a prophet. His name literally means praised one. And Muhammad was born in 570 A.D. in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. His dad was Abdullah, which means slave of Allah, who died before Muhammad was even born. Allah was the name of the moon god his family worshipped before there was an Islam. Moon worship included a black stone in Mecca called the Kaaba, or the cube. And they believed that it was a meteorite that fell to earth from the moon. The Kaaba is probably a meteorite, and it's housed in a cube building known as the House of Allah. Their legend is that Abraham and his son Ishmael built it. His mother, Muhammad's mother, was Aminah, and she died when Muhammad was 6. He was then adopted by his grandfather, Abil Muttalib, who died soon afterwards. He was then taken by Uncle Abu Talib, who was a leader of a wealthy tribe, the Quraysh. Muhammad was 25 when he married a wealthy 40-year-old widow who helped him to get connected. She was well connected herself, and she got him connected with all the leading people of Mecca. And because of that, he was able to become a successful businessman, a tradesman. And he grew very, very wealthy, all along while being pampered by his grandparents, uncles, and of course his wealthy widow. In 610, Muhammad, at the age of 40, receives what he believes is his first vision from the angel Gabriel. A vision he didn't know whether it was from God or from demons. He wasn't quite sure. Of course, his wife stepped in and reassured him it was not demons, and to go ahead and receive the message. And his visions continued, but then they suddenly stopped for about 2 years. And then he became very distraught over that. And he even became so distraught he considered suicide. And suddenly, at that moment, the visions began to reoccur. And what he did is he shared his visions with his followers because he wanted them to write these visions down, because he couldn't read or write. And these visions would become what is known today as the Quran. His new revelations were opposed over against the ones that came earlier. The newer ones were opposed, and people actually rebelled against him because of those later visions. But he was protected by his powerful uncle and his wealthy wife, who both died at the end of 620. Muhammad then married another widow, and also a 9-year-old girl. He married a 9-year-old daughter of his right-hand man, Abu Bakr, whom Muhammad had raped before he had married her. See, in Islam, pedophilia, passing around to women, mutilation of females, dehumanizing of women is a normative part of Islam today. It's normative. In 622, Muhammad migrated to Medina. No, Medina. It's right up, just up the road. Yep. Medina or Medina is called Hijra by Muslims, and began, when he migrated there, to raid caravans, specifically attacking, robbing, and murdering, who else had the money, of course? Jewish tribes. Jewish tribes. And then he ordered a genocide, which predates Hitler, of an ancient tribe of Jews in his own Karash province. Tens of thousands were murdered at the hands of Muhammad followers. He went to the Christian churches. You see, he was well read in the Torah and in the Brit Hadashah. And he went to the Christian churches, and he went to the Jewish rabbis, and he said, I am the Messiah. I am the Messiah. The rabbi says, no, you're not. Because you're not from the line of David. And the Christian church said, no, you're not. Because first of all, you don't believe that Christ was on the cross. And that there's certainly no holes in your hands. And not liking his reception from this revelation that he was Messiah, he had him murdered. Any chance he got, he would have rabbis and Christians murdered. And this began the first of what are really historically three jihads. This was the first of three jihads that will last beyond his life, over 100 years past his life. See, it was normative, brothers and sisters. It was normative for followers of Muhammad to attack Jews and Christians and have them slaughtered, their land confiscated, their women raped, their babies stolen to be future slaves. This was normative behavior of Islam. By 628, he was the leader of Arabia. He continued to modify the Quran. An early edict, for example, one of his early visions said this, let there be no compulsion in religion. Then he turned around and changed it. And he changed that very scripture to say, kill those who join other gods. Kill those who join other gods, which is still believed and practiced by Muslims today. Islam quickly spread throughout Asia, the Middle East, and Europe during the first and second jihad periods of their history to become a very powerful force that leads us into what we are now, the third jihad period. That's where you are. And what is the goal of jihad? What is the goal of Islam? Well, they're not shy about expressing it. They're very, very clear. The final conquest of the remaining world. Their desire is to have Europe under Sharia law by 2050 and the United States by 2100 and Israel. And all methods to accomplish this goal are on the table. Let me give some examples. Muslims are allowed in the Quran to lie. To lie for those who are part of Islam. To lie on behalf of those, to protect them. Islam allows followers to accommodate and blend in with the local culture until they become the majority. Until they get plugged into our neighborhoods and plugged into our political system and plugged into our economic system. Islam allows followers, again, to create a majority. The deception that most Muslims are moderate, you hear that in the news a lot. The deception that Muslims are moderate and peaceful coexisters in our society. Well, brothers and sisters, they're only moderate until they outnumber you through conversion through immigration, and through birth. Did you know the birth rate of Muslims in Israel is twice that of Jews? Double that. It's not by accident. Muslims will use marriage. They'll use marriage to bring in weak and undiscerning American men and women into their religion. Muslims will use America's tolerance to destroy cherished civil liberties, to do their evil. The Muslim Brotherhood, which was in the news a year ago in Egypt, has said that it would take America, and I'm quoting from their own writings, from within by our own hands. According to the article Sharia and Violence in American Mosques, the Muslim Brotherhood declared their interest and intent as civilization jihad. Civilization jihad. Their goal, brothers and sisters, is to create a network within American mosques to incubate jihad in America. And I'm quoting. In nations where they can dominate, they will use attacks and terrorism, which we experienced firsthand in America on 9/11. They will infiltrate every level of society. Our founding fathers viewed Islam as a threat to America. Did you know that? Our founding fathers? In 1801, 3 days after Thomas Jefferson took his oath of office, he sent naval and military expedition to North America to stop Muslim pirates, they were the Moors, from robbing and overtaking ships of commerce. Earlier in his career, when he was a diplomat, he tried to peacefully deal with the Muslims. He wrote a letter to Tripoli's ambassador asking by what right did these people have to steal and hold hostages? And the ambassador wrote him back and said, well, that it was founded on the laws of their prophet. That it was written in their Quran that all nations who did not acknowledge their authority were sinners. That it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners. Our founding father Jefferson knew the Moors or Muslims were out for world domination. Now I know this isn't a feel-good message, brothers and sisters, but my job as a shepherd is to awaken you to the reality that will put you in bondage. Whether there's bondages out there, brothers and sisters, of abusive behavior, there's bondages of attitudes and spirits, there's also bondages of other ideologies, philosophies, and religions. And we have to be made aware of this, because it is creeping in on you like a cancer, like a black mold of this nation. You've got to be made aware. Jefferson, he was a student of history. He knew that 700 years before, when Charles Martelus beat the Muslims back at the Battle of Tours, this presented the Islamic takeover in Europe. Did you know that Bobby Kennedy, do you know who assassinated Bobby Kennedy? A Muslim. A Muslim. Sirhan. Bobby Kennedy was going to speak out against Islam. In fact, at his day of his death, he had notes in his pocket. And Sirhan assassinated him. And based on what took place this week, the battle continues. Many of us found out within France, from what went on this week, that there are actually Islamic enclaves the government has allowed and designates those enclaves as no-go zones. What that means? It means that they're like states within the country. The police don't go there. Those little enclaves are run by Sharia law. France just lets them operate as their own entity, their own state within their country. The cops don't go in there. The fire department doesn't go in there. Nobody goes in there. No-go zones. Islamic states within a country. Does America have something like that? Detroit. Do you realize Detroit is something like 80% Muslim? Something 80 is an absurd number. Our educators, our historical leaders, then weren't politically correct. They saw Islam for what it was, and they went after it. And only in recent days has there been America's capitulation to Islam. And we as a nation were founded on Judeo-Christian Democratic Republic. And the Islamic's goal is an Islamic republic. We are slowly, brothers and sisters, allowing this false religion to infiltrate our communities, our schools, our government, our nation. When they outnumber the general population and get the upper hand in government and in culture and in society, they will rule. They will rule. And we have no excuse, brothers and sisters, for we have seen it coming, especially in recent history. How about World War II? World War II, Muslim Arabs, did you know, aligned themselves with Adolf Hitler? Yeah, they did. They aligned themselves with Adolf Hitler and supported the extermination of Jews. The Arab Mufti of Jerusalem made 4 trips to Berlin and supplied soldiers to the Third Reich. And in return for their help, Hitler promised, after he was done killing all the Jews in Europe, that he would then come and exterminate them from the Middle East. Hamas and Hezbollah are direct descendants of those who sided with Hitler against America. 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 3 through 6 is a reminder for the days that we are in, brothers and sisters. When they say there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them as labor pains come upon a pregnant woman. There will be no escape. But you, beloved, are not in darkness for that day to surprise you like a thief, for you are all children of light and children of the day. We are not of the night or of darkness. So then, let us not fall asleep as others do, but let's keep awake and be sober. This week on Fox, I was watching Sean Hannity as he interviewed the Imam Jem Shadre. I'm probably butchering his name. Coterie. Of what took place, Coterie, in France. And Sean asked very direct questions. He didn't badger, just straight yes to no answers. And the Imam was very forthcoming. He didn't hide his cards. He was very forthcoming about the goal of Islam. He said, well, the goal is to bring the whole world under Sharia law. That's our goal. And according to Sharia law, every faithful Muslim is obligated to wage jihad. Whether you do it by gun, whether you do it by knife, whether you do it by seduction through infiltration, violent or not, against those who won't adhere to their comprehensive, totalitarian, political, military, fascist rule and code. Any honest Muslim will tell you their life's goal is to establish a global Islamic state known as a caliphate that is governed by Sharia law. Sharia law stipulates that non-Muslims, you have 3 choices under Sharia law. You have 3 choices. 3. The first is convert to Islam and conform to Sharia. That's your first choice. Your second choice, submit as second-class citizens, which is the dhimmis. Your third choice, die. Die. Islamic terrorism, violent and non-violent, is commanded. It's commanded by Sharia law. Now, brothers and sisters, here where we have fallen asleep. Here's where we have fallen asleep. This isn't something unique to extremists or fringe elements. This is not unique to the radicalized. This is mainstream Islamic ideology. Most of you don't know that the Muslim Brotherhood that was visible during those elections in Egypt, do you know it was birthed? It wasn't birthed in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood was birthed in Chicago, here in the United States. In our country today, you can blaspheme the Bible. You can mock and make fun of Yeshua, Christians, Jews. But don't dare say anything critical or derogatory about Muhammad. Don't do it. Cost the editor of this paper his life this week. And 9 of the people he worked with. The Muslim Brotherhood is the front of the modern Islamic jihad that we are in. It's the same global supremacist objectives as Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, ISIS, and all other Islamic groups. No matter what their methods are or how extreme they are, their goal is always the same. Their goal is to conquer and bring every one of you under Sharia law. Yes, even in Canton, Ohio. Remember what happened to Matthias Maccabee in little sleepy town of Moadine? Well, the king's army finally found their way into little Moadine. And he had to go into exile for 3 years to fight back that oppression. The Muslim Brotherhood's own internal documents make clear that civilization jihad is subversion waged by the stealth. Stealth. Instead of violence, only until such time as Muslims are powerful enough to progress to violent jihad for the final conquest. Brothers and sisters, this is, you know, we often get so deceived by personalities. They seem so nice. And there are nice people out there. But some of those very, very nice personality types are very deceitful people. They couldn't be deceitful if they weren't nice. Remember, Hasatan, Satan, comes how? As a mean ogre? As violent, and red-horned, and scary? Satan comes as an angel of light. He comes as the nicest, sweetest, God-like person there is. Our political correctness is the very thing that they're exploiting. It's the very thing that they're exploiting to make Americans feel the need to reach out to the Muslim community, which opens up the doors for civilization jihad. The Muslim Brotherhood has penetrated every level of our Western society. Every level. The military. Yes. There isn't an article that doesn't come down the pipe during the week where some Muslim is complaining that they don't have certain kinds of foods, or they can't wear a beard, or they can't have a covering on their head or something over and against military standards. There isn't a day that goes by that there isn't somebody in school complaining that they don't have a place to pray 3 times a day. There's not anything that happens. If you go to France right now, every hotel has little prayer rugs out for them. There isn't a day that goes by that somebody in jail is not complaining that they're not getting the appropriate food or prayer time. Every level of Western society, our military, our government, law enforcement, financial, legal, media, school. They've penetrated every level of our world with one reason and one reason alone: the implementation of Islamic law. You ladies ready to wear a burqa? Are you? I had a customer at Wayside whose husband works in Saudi Arabia. I said, how do you like living in that culture? She goes, well, I got to wear my covering. I don't like it. I said, what happens if you don't wear it? She goes, they haul you into jail. And if it happens more than once, they throw you out of the country. So you get in real trouble. So where we live, she said, it's kind of safe. But if I go out, it's like being a prisoner. How'd you like that? How'd you like to be a slave of some man? Our government, our press, and society, we don't get it. The church doesn't get it. The body of faith doesn't get it. We don't recognize the reality of this Islamic strategy. We are fooled into believing that Islam is just another way to God, another religion. That's what they want you to believe. If only the common citizen knew the truth behind the Islamic worldview. So what is the threat for us today? Well, let me give you some stats here. Pay very close attention, because this is real. Don't come to the Star in the East unless you want truth, because I'll give you truth. All right? Our government has found lately that 80% of the U.S. mosques advocate and promote violence against America. So we've cuddled up next to the mosque, and this is what they're advocating behind closed doors. 51% had materials on site advocating violence. Half of them. 30% had materials moderately advocating violence. So of all the synagogues, 80% of them was promoting in some level violence against America. 84.5% of the imams recommend and promote violence against America. 50%, half of the mosques in America, they rejoiced when the Twin Towers went down. When all those thousands of people died. They rejoiced. They celebrated. They're in our country. In 2007, the Muslim Brotherhood declared their true intentions. They wrote it out. And I quote from them. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process, with all that the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within. Without this level of understanding, I don't know if we're up for the challenge. And I certainly don't know if we've prepared ourselves for this reality. Because we just think it's going to go away. They haven't gone away yet. So what do we do? Right? What do we do? Well, first of all, the most important part is what we're doing this morning. We're educating ourselves in this reality. We're educating ourselves and developing an accurate understanding of Sharia law. We have to start voting in a way that stops our government and agencies from investing and funding outreach to Muslim communities. Because all you're doing is you're giving them the resources they need to destroy America. Mainstream America has got to stop accommodating this religion. Yes, it is a free country. Yes, it is a free country. But what do we do in this country when people set out to come against it? What do we do with threats to this country? Do we embrace communism? We did in the 50s and 60s. We dealt with that pretty harshly. Right? We just started talking to Cuba after all these years, right? Listen, brothers and sisters, if you can't pray or say God or Jesus or Yeshua, nor should they be able to have prayer blankets or wear burqas.
Amen.
Thank you. Textbooks must not promote Islam or Sharia or distort the truth of our heritage. Compounds and communities that seek to segregate themselves, like in France, on the basics of the Sharia law, go against the best interests in the USA and shouldn't be allowed. We are, brothers and sisters, we are an integrated society. We are not a segregated society. We're integrated. One of the comments that was made from people that lived in France is that when you talk to Muslims in France, they identify with their home country. They don't identify the country that they've assimilated into. When my mother came to America, she didn't come here as a German American. She came here as an American. She assimilated into this culture. This is her country now. She didn't create a German community apart from the rest of the general community. She wanted to be here. She wanted to be an American. Immigration of those who adhere to Sharia law, they got to be denied. Just as we denied those who promote causes and beliefs that are dangerous to our society. It's time to wake up. We're asleep. We've got to wake up to the reality that you are in the third jihad right now. Go back and study Islam. You can see definitive times in the history where the first jihad was and the second jihad was. Clear. And now you're in the third. You've got to stop being silent. You've got to stop being politically correct. It's time for followers of Yeshua and adherents to Torah to stop contemplating where you stand in Islam. We are so concerned about not hurting people's feelings. We want everyone to like us. We don't want to offend anybody. Don't be misled. Don't be misled. Our Judeo-Christian values are being eroded away systematically by a bloodthirsty enemy who wants to see you convert or die. It's time, brothers and sisters, to use the weapons that God has given you. The weapons of prayer, the truth of Torah, the wisdom of Messiah, and start opening your mouths and speaking that truth. You know, in conclusions, the questions came in the aftermath, as they always do in any tragedies. Why did this happen? Why did it happen? Why? And some of the responses from the press included, well, it was Israel's fault. They blamed Israel. It's always the Jews. And then some blamed the French paper for being so insensitive to Muslims by mocking a figure so sacred to their faith. Now, they didn't speak about when they mocked the Pope. They didn't speak of when they mocked Jews. They got one picture where a Jew is pushing, Hasidim is pushing Muhammad in a cart. They didn't complain about that. The governments, the press, religion as a whole, for whatever motivation, have brought into the delusion that these radicalized elements are not indicative of Islam as a whole. And if you believe any differently than that, well, you're just an Islamophobe. You're an Islamophobe. The perception The perception, brothers and sisters, that they are seducing us with is that Islam really is a faith of peace. That's what the Imam Anshan Hadi said. We are a religion of peace, as long as you submit to us. And he said that. You can peacefully coexist under Sharia law if you submit. If you submit to the lifestyle and manner of life and ideology that is Sharia law. That's the perception that they are seducing you with in the press and the government today, is that Islam really is a faith of peace. The deception is not until the world is under full submission to Sharia law. Then there'll be peace. No submission, you know what it is? The sword. And that's their symbol. The half moon represents a bow and the sword. Truth, brothers and sisters, the truth is, we need to awaken this morning. And I know we're a small group, but this is going to go on the internet. We need to awaken this morning.
Can't do that. They'll shut you off.
We need to awaken to this morning, to this reality. They hate you. They hate you. Ask a Jew what it's like for people just to hate them because they're Jewish. Brothers and sisters, they hate you. They hate your Judeo-Christian values. They hate America. You are an infidel. And you are to be converted or die. They hate you. Whether you're natural heirs or adopted sons and daughters of the promise received by Yitzhak or Isaac, they hate you just as half-brother Ishmael hated Yitzhak. For we read in Genesis 16:12, he shall be a wild ass of a man, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall live at odds with all his kin. That is what you are facing today. Don't just turn off the TV, brothers and sisters, because just because you turn it off doesn't mean it's going to go away. It's here now. It's here now. Just look around. It's not by accident. You know, there was a I can't remember the church. It was a church that had prayed for revival. And this is a historical account for Muslims. And the church prayed that they would get visions of Yeshua. Visions of Yeshua. It happened.
Yes.
It happened. And these clerics began to express to their peers how they had these visions of Yeshua. And you know what happened? They were killed. Because they believed they were poisoned with this false Messiah Yeshua, as they believe him to be. Well, they believe he's a prophet, but only second to Muhammad. So be careful, because Islam actually has value in the Old and the New Testament and in Yeshua. But they just believe that the Quran is the holy book, the divinely inspired book, and then Muhammad is the divine prophet. So after all this morning, I don't mean for this to be a downer, but I've got to awaken you to this reality. I've got to open your eyes. You've got to see this. And I don't have all the answers either, how to deal with it. I wait at the bus stop each morning with my Arab neighbor. And in his garage is a TV going, and it's all in Arabic. He's a very friendly guy. But I have to awaken to the reality that the faith that he adheres to wants to see my destruction, my conversion or my destruction. And I have to be mindful of that. So, hopefully, I've explained to you this morning clearly how all that I said and so much more that I didn't get to share with you this morning will explain to you why I am, and perhaps you should be, an Islamophobe. Because a good dose of healthy fear is a good thing. Please rise. Yivarech Yahweh v'yishmarecha es Adonai panav elecha v'yichonecha es Adonai panav elecha v'simlecha shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. Lord, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And I pray the Lord will lift his countenance upon you and he will grant you his peace of shalom. B'Shem Yeshua Adonai, the congregation agrees? Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom.